Honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, on the occasion of the 75th session of the UN General Assembly, I welcome you all to the 5th Annual UNGA Conference entitled Transforming Our World, 5 Years of Action Towards the SDGs. My name is Mehmet Kılıç, and it is my pleasure to be your host today. I'm the president of the Journalists and Writers Foundation, which is dedicated to the culture of peace, human rights, and sustainable development. The year 2020 is a historic time as we celebrate the 75th anniversary of the United Nations and the 25th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration on Women Empowerment and Gender Equality. It is also the 5th year of the adoption of the UN Global Agenda 2030. UNGA Conference 2020 aims to review the implementation of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. 21 high-level speakers from 11 different countries will discuss the progress made since the adoption of the UN SDGs in 2015. It is an opportunity for us to look back on the achievements and look forward to face the challenges. This conference is organized by 35 global partners from 24 countries. And I want to thank all of the organizations for their dedication and support to make this conference a success. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you all to watch the introduction video of the UNGA Conference 2020.
UNGA Conference 2020, Transforming Our World, 5 Years of Action Towards the SDGs, 23rd September 2020. The Journalists and Writers Foundation and its global partners welcome you all to the 5th Annual UNGA Conference, which aims to contribute to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. This year's theme, Transforming Our World, 5 Years of Action Towards the SDGs, aims to review the implementation progress of the Global Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Peace and Development, with its 17 goals and 169 targets. The UNGA Conference gathers diverse stakeholders, including UN member states, the private sector, and civil society organizations, to discuss the Global Agenda 2030 during the United Nations General Assembly. We believe that providing innovative solutions, developing effective strategies, and offering policy recommendations will advance sustainable peace and development worldwide. To transform our world, distinguished high-level speakers and panelists from different parts of the world will discuss, analyze, and evaluate 5 years of action towards the SDGs to assess the progress made in the last 5 years. Partnerships remains at the heart of successful implementation of the SDGs, and it can be achieved by mobilizing the private sector and engaging civil society organizations. Partnerships help share financial, natural, and human resources effectively for higher levels of outcome to make our world a better place for all in peace and harmony. Our commitment to inclusive, transformative, and achievable development strategy for humanity and the planet will also help achieve our joint mission of leaving no one behind. The COVID-19 pandemic has posed unprecedented global threats to social, economic, and environmental development that require all nations and peoples to work collectively and fight against the negative effects of any health crisis. Together, we can build strong institutions and resilient communities. The UNGA Conference 2020 focuses on 3 major areas: women empowerment and gender equality, SDG goal number 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions. Lessons learned from COVID-19 pandemic, evolving social and economic development for sustainability. Panel 1 addresses women empowerment by focusing on SDG goal number 5, gender equality, and SDG goal number 10, reduced inequalities. Panel 2 undertakes a review of 5 years of action and progress made in implementing SDG goal number 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions. Panel 3 discusses the lessons learned from the COVID-19 pandemic, with a particular focus on SDG number 3, good health and well-being, and SDG number 17, partnerships for the goals. The UNGA Conference will propose a framework for action for the next 10 years to improve local and national policies and practices based on the assessment of the progress made towards the achievement of the SDGs. The Journalists and Writers Foundation and its global partners remain committed in transforming our world through collaboration and partnerships for the goals.
The UNGA conference gathers diverse stakeholders, including UN member states, the private sector, and civil society organizations, to discuss the Global Agenda 2030 during the UN General Assembly. Ladies and gentlemen, now we have an amazing career diplomat, professor, and a peacemaker from Australia, who dedicated his life to ensure peace and access to justice for all globally. It is my distinct honor to introduce our first keynote speaker, Honorable Bob Carr, former Minister of Australia, to deliver his keynote speech.
My greetings from Sydney, Australia. We meet at a time of substantial global challenges, not least, in my view, if you'll allow me to share it with you, the challenge of global warming, which is confirming its reality year by year. And of course, that shapes the world we live in and the challenge of producing a world where there is peace, justice, and strong institutions. I want to home in on SDG number 16, which is about these challenges. But I wanted to start by saying that the leadership of the Secretary-General in drawing the world's attention to the persistent challenge of climate is very valid, because the problems we face in achieving peace, security, and robust institutions is all the greater given the difficulty the people of this planet have in surviving against sometimes catastrophically forceful changes in the way the natural world works. We've witnessed tragically a retreat of the civic space, where we thought people could operate independent of government and make criticisms and seek information and fight for their rights. For a lot of the world's people, for far too many, the opportunity of speaking out and advancing the frontiers of freedom, that's becoming restricted. And we need the views of global participants on the evidence of this. Is it in fact the case, as it seems to me, that this civic space is becoming restricted and is not being expanded? And if so, what are some of the answers? How can rulers facing what they believe are the great challenges of solving the problems they're forced to solve on behalf of their people be persuaded to stick to the norms of political contestability and pluralism, respecting the views of others and not persecuting people for holding dissident opinions? When our societies celebrate a dissident, instead of turning the forces of the state on him or her, they represent a great vote of confidence in our culture, in our civilization. And we need more leaders to see that and to be persuaded not to resort to the easier task of closing down dissonant voices, of limiting the room for difference, of not permitting people who think they're discriminated against or repressed to speak out and draw attention to their case. This has particular sensitivity to people already disadvantaged, in many cases women and girls, immigrants, including those who suddenly find themselves without a nationality, at loose in the world, seeking a new home, and persons of colour, many times in the context of increasing conflicts and violence. We know that interstate conflict in the world has probably been reduced. And the wars most common these days are civil wars, wars that pitch families against families. We need views on how the world, how the international community can respond to that challenge, and how we can guide the participants towards peaceful solutions, the peaceful resolution of the issues that divide them. We need to talk up in defence of those who are now risking their lives seeking to give the public information. As a journalist myself, I feel particularly sensitive about how reporters are at risk in many jurisdictions from seeking just to do that, to find out information on behalf of their publics and to have that information published. Too many journalists are in prison. The UN has charted hundreds of cases where people have lost their freedom simply by attempting to exert their energies to obtain information that we all want access to, that we all think we're better off for knowing. Human rights defenders going into some of the riskier parts of the planet to take up the case of people who've been dispossessed and are at risk, they need our support as well. How do we give them that support? How do we deliver for them the guarantees they should have as people carrying on what we all see as a good fight? Agenda 2030 declared to leave no one behind and therefore advancing sustainable development through human rights was elevated as an essential process. Promotion and protection of civil, cultural, economic, political and social rights, all this seen as essential to mitigate the national and international crisis. Member states and national human rights organisations and civil society need to speak again about the integration of human rights to create peaceful and just and strong institutions. The great threat, let me return to my opening remarks, is the shift in the world's climate patterns and the destabilisation of all aspects of our interaction as human beings living together on the planet's surface. Promoting democratic values is integrally linked to SDG 16. The public should have confidence in the way its judicial systems, public ethics in public institutions play themselves out. Sadly, according to Freedom House, there are 14 consecutive years in which global freedoms have declined. And that undermines what we all need, and that is strong, respected global institutions. But the Freedom of the World 2020 challenged us by finding, and I quote, "the unchecked brutality of autocratic regimes and the ethical decay of democratic powers are combining to make the world increasingly hostile to fresh demands for better governance," unquote. But it's that better governance that we need to achieve, we need to rally behind. And I ask you for your best thoughts on how we move forward this agenda of having the institutions we rely on work more effectively and avoid gradual erosion of authority and respect. Report 2019 reminded us that the UN recorded and verified a total of 397 additional killings of human rights defenders, journalists and trade unionists across what I think is a frightening total of 41 countries. So 41 countries out of the world's just over 190 are countries, are jurisdictions where these violations can occur. Member states and intergovernmental organisations have an obligation to protect the defenders and the reporters or the recorders of fundamental rights being undermined or corroded. Information is in fact vital. The world can't make the right decisions if denied access to information about the condition of life on the planet. So I want to encourage the panel's discussions and invite you to push the agenda, to push the frontier, so that we can see more clearly where we can protect those at risk and entrench more robustly their rights to the fair hearing, we think, which goes with being a human being on planet Earth.
Ladies and gentlemen, now it is my distinct honor to introduce our second keynote speaker, Dr. Wayne Henry, Director General of the Planning Institute from the Ministry of Finance and Public Service from the Republic of Jamaica.
Distinguished guests, colleagues, good morning. Today I will speak on the topic COVID-19 and beyond, perspectives from Jamaica's experience in integrating the SDGs in the implementation of Vision 2030 Jamaica National Development Plan. I will be examining areas of progress, strengths and gaps, and share early insights on the way forward. Jamaica's motto is "Out of many, one people." This is representative of an approach to nation building that advances integration, equity and inclusion as core principles in advancing a vision for not only Jamaicans, but one that connects us with our regional and global communities, and which culminated in the development and launch of the 21-year Vision 2030 Jamaica National Development Plan, NDP, in 2009, Jamaica's first long-term national development plan. Vision 2030 Jamaica provides a roadmap and governance and institutional framework for the achievement of developed country status, a secure and prosperous future, and the realization of a vision, Jamaica, the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. It is geared towards the achievement of 4 synergistic and interdependent sustainable development goals, which cascade into 15 national outcomes. The roadmap for SDG implementation in Jamaica, which was approved by Cabinet in 2017, identifies Vision 2030 Jamaica and the Medium-Term Socio-Economic Policy Framework, MTF, the main mechanism for policy-based implementation of the long-term strategies of Vision 2030 Jamaica, as providing the framework and mechanisms for advancing the achievement of the SDGs. The roadmap was informed by stakeholder consultations and a rapid integrated assessment, RIA, in 2016 that determined Vision 2030 Jamaica and the SDGs to be 91% aligned. Of note, Jamaica determined that, based on efforts to address gaps in alignment, estimates show the country to have exceeded 99% alignment in 2018. In the MTF, The SDGs have been aligned with the goals and outcomes of Vision 2030 Jamaica, and targets of the SDGs have been aligned with the medium-term strategic priorities. Jamaica's first voluntary National Review Report 2018 comprised a report on action and performance based on this alignment of the SDGs with Vision 2030 Jamaica and integration in plan implementation. In alignment with the implementation framework of Vision 2030 Jamaica, the roadmap for SDG implementation prioritizes coordination, institutional arrangements and partnerships, capacity building in planning, monitoring and evaluation, data and statistics, development financing and other resourcing, and communications and advocacy, and states that implementation of Vision 2030 Jamaica can lead to the achievement of the SDGs. It presents recommendations towards supporting the enablement of existing strategies and programs to be integrated in policy bundles and serve as entry points that have accelerative effects. Prior to the onset of the novel coronavirus COVID-19 global pandemic, Jamaica, in its pursuit of Vision 2030 Jamaica, had experienced mixed results over the first 11 years of plan implementation, with performance steadily advancing in some areas while slipping or remaining the same in others. Gains were made in human capital development, macroeconomic stability, and governance, among other areas, while challenges were experienced in such areas such as safety and security, environmental sustainability, and the rate of non-communicable diseases. The country recorded positive performance on key international governance indicators such as voice and accountability and government effectiveness, and was ranked 6 out of 180 countries in the 2020 World Press Freedom Index. And the case clearance rate increased owing to targeted efforts to improve access to court and other justice services. Continued focus was given to advancing women's empowerment and gender equality within the framework of the National Policy for Gender Equality, NPGE 2011, and alignment with the Beijing Platform. Communication and reporting on plan implementation and performance have been geared towards maximum reach and ease of access. Based on lessons learned, Jamaica has engaged systems and practices for improved coordination of the implementation of Vision 2030 Jamaica and the SDGs towards improved development outcomes. These include full alignment of the MTF 2018 to 2021 with relevant SDGs and targets, strengthening the capacity of Vision 2030 Jamaica Secretariat for coordination and monitoring and evaluation regarding the integration of the SDGs in plan implementation, and the capacity of the SDG Secretariat for coordination of SDG implementation. Establishing a two-tiered stakeholder-driven governance mechanism, a core group and national oversight committee. Integrating the SDGs in partnership frameworks and institutional arrangements. Strengthening national capacity to report on the SDG indicators. Strengthening capacity for sustainable and adequate development financing, including innovative financing, and developing the systems and structures for a digital society and technology enablement. COVID-19 has demonstrated how quickly a development path can be challenged. From the PIOJ's preliminary review of the development targets under Vision 2030 Jamaica, it is anticipated that based on projections for the Jamaican and wider global society and economy, as well as ongoing national demand for social assistance, economic stimulus and worker protection interventions, there will be slippages in several development indicators. COVID-19 has already been demonstrated to have deleterious effects on lives and livelihoods, with an estimated economic contraction of 10% for the fiscal year. Increases in the experience of different types of vulnerabilities for the majority of the population, and for particularly those traditionally most at risk, and requiring Jamaica, like the rest of the global community, to balance public health and economic survivability concerns. Within this context, the significance of national development policy and planning as prerequisites for mitigating losses and damages and seizing opportunities for stability and growth has been highlighted. The role of government and the importance of public policy have been elevated as critical success factors in governing markets, including informing the relationships and linkages within and among the financial and real sectors, as well as the protection of a country's economic capital and investments, such as its entrepreneurs, workers, and national and global value chains. The necessity for agility and adhering to strategic priorities in not only programming, but in the means of implementation is critical to the pursuit of stakeholder and partnership-driven development within a context where private and public interests may simultaneously intersect and conflict. We see this in our own country response, where government has had to extend its direct management and intervention beyond traditional areas such as macroeconomic and fiscal management, public health, education, and environmental management to economic value chains, including financial and technical interventions in both supply and demand logistics and income security within a paycheck protection framework to both the formal and informal sectors, among others. Yet, the performance of public-private and other partnerships and the role of civil society and non-governmental actors has been demonstrably critical to ensuring that the necessary capital, expertise, and ownership, as well as local level and needs-based reach and translation of policies and programs is achieved. This reality, coupled with the reigniting of debates on the implications of globalization and technological advancement on the future of work, sustainability, equity, and resilience within global value chains, and climate change, particularly on small island developing states, SIDS, have signaled possible enduring shifts in the global development landscape post-COVID-19. Jamaica's commitment to Vision 2030 Jamaica and the SDGs provides a framework for response to crises such as COVID-19. The relevance of our long-term goals and overarching strategic framework for development has been reinforced. But strategic actions in the medium to long term to realize our goals and maintain that path require strategic review and revision, including revisiting our development targets up to 2030 and the schedule for achieving planned outcomes and our national development goals. COVID-19 has created and exposed cracks in global systems and structures which pose threats and present opportunities for change and growth. Jamaica has been responding to the recognized critical importance of ensuring that Vision 2030 Jamaica and SDG-aligned policies regarding human capital development and social protection are integrated in shifting economic and business practices and social responsibility efforts. This approach seeks to ensure that post-COVID-19 societal shifts do not result in slippage or deviations away from the pursuit of development that is multidimensionally sustainable and inclusive. Jamaica is committed to moving beyond business as usual and embracing a new normal that leaves no one behind. Thank you.
We thank our keynote speakers for sharing their insights about the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Dear participants, we also thank you for your participation from 30+ countries. This is the end of the opening session. Please stay tuned. Do not forget to tweet, retweet, like, or mention on social media. The panel session will start shortly. Thank you.